What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Tim Hines, and I'm here to talk to you today about the starter state of mind, how an entrepreneurial spirit will make you a more savvy marketer. And it's something that is near and dear to my heart as a marketing starter myself. I'm looking forward to sharing those insights, how you can think like a startup founder and become the best marketer that you can be. Now, to kick things off here, I want to share a little bit about who I am. I am a professional marketer and consultant, obviously a professional marketer, otherwise I wouldn't be here today. I'm also an author, speaker, and podcaster. My new book, The Marketing Starter, actually just came out this year. I hope you guys check that out. I also do a lot of speaking in the marketing sector, as well as on generational topics and a bunch of different things to try to keep people motivated in the marketplace and at their work. And also a podcaster. You can check out my podcast. It's called The Marketing Starter on all your favorite podcast platforms. And I interview thought leaders from around the world about how they are harnessing this power of this entrepreneurial spirit, which we're talking about today in this session. I'm also a startup founder. I founded a few companies. You can see them here on this slide: Local Bound, an ad agency, Curb Ninja, Pitch Training Camp, a few others. If you'd like to learn more about those things, you can definitely Google them, check them out, and of course, actually scan that QR code there, take you right to my LinkedIn, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you. And I'm also a huge marketing evangelist, so any chance I get to talk about marketing or meet with other marketers or be involved in the marketing community like we're doing here, I love to do that. So again, please connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like to. I always look forward to adding connections and sharing insights there. So who I've worked for in the past, I've worked for a few companies, maybe you've heard of them. Dialpad, which is a universal communications platform based in the cloud. Ran partner marketing for them. I worked for Ticketmaster way back in the day. Some of us have a love-hate relationship with them. I've worked for Rockbot, Audience View, and even the Tribune Media Group is where I first got my start in marketing way back in college. And I even worked with the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, for a few minutes and an internship while I was in school. So I've kind of been all over the place, worked for a lot of different industries that are in a lot of different companies in a lot of different industries that were in a lot of different stages of growth. So I've gotten to learn a lot about what it takes to kind of think on the fly, much as like an entrepreneur would while they're doing marketing. So my background hopefully helps to shed a little bit of light about why I'm kind of an expert in this specific topic. Now, what I want you guys to learn today, first and foremost, is number one is how to harness that power of the scrappy entrepreneur. It's not something that maybe is innate in everyone or is something that comes natural. So this is something that I hope that can be learned. And this presentation helps to scratch the surface of that. Of course, my book does as well. Secondly, I hope you can find new ways of overcoming marketing challenges that are facing you today. Obviously, there's a lot that's going on. The marketing as an industry itself is constantly changing, and we have to be able to keep up with the world around us. And then third here, I want you to absorb some tips on building marketing programs from the ground up, from scratch. And that's really what is at the center of being a marketing starter, is figuring out how to do some of these things without being told, or to get things started and actually take that initial action. And that's all about doing that stuff from scratch. And then I also want you guys to sharpen your communication and team building skills as well. Obviously, that's why you attend any conferences. That's why you look for sessions like this. That's going to help you get some education on how you can be a little bit better in your communication and a little bit better in your team building and how you work with others in this crazy Zoom digital world that we live in today. And then lastly, I'm going to teach you guys how to get started. And this is the most important part of how you think like an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs take action. They start something, they build something. And that's what I want you guys to take away from today's session. So what is a marketing starter? I define it as a marketer who applies an entrepreneurial mindset in all that they do, right? So in any aspect of whether they're working for themselves or working for another company, whether they are a director or leader themselves or they're not, a marketer can actually apply this entrepreneurial mindset to all that they do, because they can be constantly learning, constantly making changes, again, living on the fly, being able to be malleable, be mobile, be able to make those instant changes in the way that they work and the way that they live. And that's what a marketing starter really is. And I look at it in this kind of this Venn diagram here, where a marketing starter is one part marketer, one part scientist, and one part entrepreneur. And where those things come together at the very middle there is what is a marketing starter. And there can be a lot of different kinds of starters. You can be a sales starter, you can be an engineer starter, you can be a human resources starter, you can be all those type of things as well. Obviously, my background's in marketing, and marketing is my forte. So we're here to talk about what it means to be a marketing starter. And this is kind of that intersection of those things and how I see them actually functioning together. So what I want you guys to do from now on through the rest of the presentation here is actually just put your entrepreneurship hat on for a second. Think about what it would mean for you to wear that entrepreneur hat. Think about what it would mean for you if you were to step out and create your own business for a minute, and how you would need to go about marketing that business, perfecting that business, bringing that business to market, growing it, hiring people, establishing things, constantly making those changes that need to be made, focusing on the big picture while also getting wrapped up in the minutia. That's really what an entrepreneur hat is. So if you guys can take out your entrepreneurship caps and place them on your heads right now for the rest of the presentation here, that will help you kind of at least have that lens, if you will, of what I'm trying to show, the worldview I'm trying to show you through the presentation here. So what do you think of when you think of entrepreneur? Maybe you think of this other handsome bald guy. You got one here, you got one right here on the presentation. Maybe you think of this guy when you think of entrepreneur. You think of maybe Jeff Bezos, right? Someone who kind of started from humble beginnings and worked his way up, and now is one of the richest people in the world, running a website that, well, I guess none of us could really function on if we didn't have it. Or maybe you think of this kooky entrepreneur, right? Elon Musk, we know who he is. He actually lives where I live in Austin, Texas now, and I actually just got my very first Tesla, so super excited to be kind of plugged into that community. But maybe we think of someone like that, or maybe we think of him. I bet a lot of people here don't know who this guy is because that's an old picture. But besides having crazy ass eyebrows, he's also a crazy entrepreneur who tried things over and over and over and over and over and over again until he got it right. And if you're guessing who this is, yes, this is Thomas Edison, and he invented the light bulb. And he was one of obviously the fathers of electricity and getting that into market. But one thing that he did that was so crazy that I admired about him is that it took him thousands and thousands of times to get that filament right in the light bulb before it burned out or exploded on him, before he got that one. If you think about it, if he would have just given up, if he would have given up on the 999th try and said, no, I'm done, this won't work, right? Maybe we wouldn't have light bulbs today. I mean, maybe we would have, but he wouldn't have been kind of the father of that. So I always find his story fascinating. Or maybe when you think of an entrepreneur, you think of the mom and pop, right? The mom and pop store around the corner. They're running a little health food store, or a comic book shop, or a trinket store, or a convenience store, whatever. There's plenty of mom and pops, online stores too. There's plenty of mom and pops that are also entrepreneurs. And actually, the real entrepreneurs who I think that make the biggest impact in the world really are those guys. The guys that are doing their own thing, running their own small business, that are keeping the country running, right? Those type of people are the people who I traditionally think of when I think of entrepreneur. So we all maybe have a bunch of different kind of thoughts when we think of what entrepreneur is, but I'm hoping that you can picture yourself as being an entrepreneur too, because it doesn't take much for you to do that. You could open up an eBay store and be an entrepreneur all of a sudden overnight while you're also working for the company that you're working for. So I think there's a lot of, questioning yourself that can go into, oh, can I really do this? Can I run my own business? Sure, absolutely. And anyone can. You just got to take that step and make it happen. And that taking that step can also happen within your marketing to make yourself better as well. So what I think sets entrepreneurs apart from other people, right, is number one, they build great things. They have that vision to do something grand, to change the world in some way. And maybe it's a small chunk, like the mom and pop, like, I want to bring a health food grocery store to my corner of town because there isn't one, and I'm going to change that part of town. Or they're going to be someone like Elon Musk who's like, I'm going to bring electric cars to mass market, right? Either way, they're still building great things and have a great spirit within them that drives kind of this vision forward. They also shoot for the stars, right? They don't necessarily think small. They maybe could be doing something small like the mom and pop, but really what they're shooting for is driving great change because of the business that they're building and ultimately helping people. And I think that's what entrepreneurship really is at its core, is that you are there to create a business first and foremost, sure, but really what you're doing at the end of the day is you're creating a better world for people, or you're trying to serve people in some way. So that's part of shooting for the stars. Now, but they also keep their feet on the ground, right? I think when you see entrepreneurs kind of fall off the rails is when they forget that they are coming from a real world place, that they're living too much up in the stars and up in the sky. They can become less relatable, and then often forget like what the every man or every person wants maybe from their business. And so a great entrepreneur is shooting for the stars, but also keeps their feet on the ground. And this is a great example of that. This is, just like your normal average American two-car garage here, and it may be nondescript, and many of you may not recognize it, but this is actually the garage where the two Steves got together and developed Apple Computer. And this was in the Silicon Valley area of California. And that is a great example of kind of those humble beginnings, that feet on the ground, right? As they saw a problem, they were like, we're going to try to tackle this, and we're going to build a company in our garage, in our house, right? So anyone can do this kind of thing. All entrepreneurs at some point are coming from some sort of humble beginning, unless they were obviously handed businesses down and stuff like that. But the originators of these great ideas are building things in their garage, or building things in their basements, they're running businesses out of their homes, and then turning it into something really cool. So I love just looking at this, just totally average two-car garage, and knowing like, hey, this is where one of the world's most valuable companies actually got its start. And then, of course, entrepreneurs also keep their heads in the clouds, right? They're always dreaming. They're always thinking of the next great thing that they can add to their vision, and also having that dream essence is just a big part of what makes an entrepreneur, right? They see kind of outside of their bubble that they live in. They kind of see outside of the box a little bit, and that gives them that foresight into creating something that's just really, really awesome. So as far as the starter mindset goes, there's a few elements of that I would love for you guys to kind of take away from. Number one is you need to be fearless and don't ask for permission. I mean, this is the starter way, or almost the American way too, right? Is you go out kind of like a cowboy and you're like, I'm not afraid. I'm going to go out and just make this happen, and I'll ask for forgiveness later. So taking that step, taking that initiative, especially in business and in marketing, I think actually can be really, really great. And while you're being respectful and not stepping on people's toes, sometimes you have to just take that action and make it happen. Secondly, you want to welcome change wherever possible and be open to challenges. I think anyone who is rigid will have a really, really hard time at this. And what I want you to do, if you kind of do have that rigid mindset, is want to tear that down, because you have to embrace change in this world that is changing so rapidly around us. There's not much we can do that's not going to be impacted in the change that is happening. We have to welcome it, be open to it, and then also be open to the challenge of keeping up with it. That's a super important piece. Third thing here is you got to consider yourself an outsider. And what I mean by that is you have to question the status quo. For a lot of businesses and a lot of marketers and a lot of what we do is just like, oh, this is the way we do it. This is the way it's always done. We're going to keep doing it that way. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but I can tell you that if the status quo is maintaining what's happening, that's not welcoming the change or welcoming the challenge, right? And so you have to get outside of that. You have to ask questions. You have to think of yourself as if you were coming from outside of your organization or out of your department, not knowing, maybe take what you know about the business and almost throw it away and pretend like you're coming in completely blind and start poking holes in that and asking questions. I mean, there's a reason why people hire consultants like me to come in and help them with their business, because when you're in there too long, you get these blinders on and you can't see outside. You can't see the forest through the trees, right? That old expression. And they need consultants that are going to come in kind of with this outsider type of view to be able to help them make those changes that are necessary to keep the business moving forward. And so you need to consider yourself an outsider in what you do in your marketing. You also need to recover quickly and listen to feedback. You know, an entrepreneurial trait is like knowing you're gonna fail, failing fast, and then getting up and trying again, getting back on that horse and continuing until you learn, until you break it, right? And then also listening to the feedback that you're getting from your peers, your customers, your employees, and your managers. And you want to focus on what matters, which really is that human experience. I was alluding to it a few slides ago where I was saying, like, at the end of the day, what we're doing out here is to serve people. Even if you're a B2B company or you're a tech-to-tech company, whatever, at the end of the day, there are people who are ultimately buying from you. There are people who are interested in what you have, and they want to know that you care about them and their human element and their human experience. And so focusing on that is important. And then be ridiculously resourceful. I think this one's kind of funny. And this is one I talk to in my book quite a bit. And that is finding what you can, kind of being like MacGyver, making an explosive device out of a paper clip, a piece of gum, and a rubber band, right? Like using all the things that you have around you in a very resourceful way to make things happen. When you're a marketing starter, you might find yourself in an organization that doesn't have every single resource in the entire world. And so you have to make what you can out of what you got. And so being ridiculously resourceful is going to help you win and be successful when you're taking the starter mindset approach. And then lastly, you need to take action and just do something. And I love this meme. I've seen this meme, like kind of poking at your favorite sports team saying like, come on, do something. And I'm a Chicago Bears fan. Do something, Bears, like do something, Bears offense. They don't do anything, right? But this is me poking me. You have to take that action and you have to do something. People, the difference between entrepreneurs and everyone else is that anyone can have an idea, but an entrepreneur or a starter will actually take action on trying to implement that idea. So implement. Do something. Don't do nothing. Now, the way that I do something is I actually use what I call my 3-phase approach. I also talk to this in my book as well. The first part of that is assess and investigate. And that's when I'm using my time either coming into an organization or tackling a new project within my existing company to really understand and put my detective hat on to learn what is the situation? What is that status quo that needs to be questioned? I need to do a full assessment, kind of build and look at all the pieces that we have, all the pieces that would be missing, and what needs to be assembled and organized for me to be able to move forward with the project. And that's really where we're going to come out with like the gap analysis and all those things. But it's also like taking a look at this proverbial marketing closet, whether it's metaphorical or real, taking a look in there going, okay, what kind of tools do we have? Where are people operating? And when was the last time we had a freaking blog post? All the content pieces. Do we have anything coming up related to events? How about the budget? And like just taking a look at the entire landscape of what your little piece of marketing, whether it's small or the entire department, needs to own. And so having that assessment investigation piece is first. Second, once you've gotten your gap analysis and those other things is when you can start to get organized and building out what you need related to your programs. And so organization could be getting the new tools and resources that you need, building and finalizing your budget, hiring and bringing in the right people. And then once you kind of have that, you can start to build out all the programs and all of the things to get the drive set and ready to go. And then third, that's where we go. That's where we do. That's where we implement what we were working on in the last 2 phases and try it, test it, and then scale it up because, well, anyone can really start something, but the key is also growing it, which I'll get into in a little bit as well. So the first thing that we need to do is we really need to learn the business in and out. And some people may be working for an organization for a long time and never really know what the business is, like where it fits within the marketplace, who the competitors are, what the key solutions are, what the target buyers are. These are all things that are really important, I think, for any marketer at any level, whether you're a creative designer or a CMO, to really understand how the business fits in, against its competitors and in the marketplace. So taking the time to learn the business, and there's a lot of different ways you can do this, from interviewing the executive team to talking to customers to subscribing to industry newsletters, attending conferences, hanging out and grabbing drinks with the sales team. There's so many different ways that you can learn the business, but be open to exploring different ways so that way you can understand how you fit into the business at large, and then what kind of impact you're going to be having. So really learning the business in and out will help you just to be a better marketer. And that's something that an entrepreneur knows, right? Is they get so plugged into the industry and to the business that they just live and breathe it. And you need to do the same thing. Now, this is an interesting thing. This labs is greater than factories idea is something that I heard at another marketing conference a few years back. So I stole this from another speaker, but I love this so much. This is something I talk to quite a bit, is that we have to look at what we do in marketing, especially as marketing starters, entrepreneurial marketers. We have to look at what we do as a factory, or excuse me, as a lab versus a factory. I think a lot of times salespeople, executive leadership, other people within the company think marketing is here to pull a lever and drive leads. Pull a lever, drive leads. I need leads, I need leads, I need leads. But when you're looking at it from that type of view, it leaves out so much more of what marketing is designed to do. I mean, first and foremost, right? Marketing is here to build trust within the buyers, within the community, and to establish that the company is a thought leader, to show that they are there to solve real human problems at the end of the day. Factories don't do that. Laboratories do that. I pictured this laboratory where they're mixing different concoctions and chemicals together to come up with a vaccine or a cure for some disease that's ultimately going to be fantastic and change the world. And that's what marketing starters need to do and need to position themselves as. You are going to blow things up every now and again. Factories are repeatable, they're streamlined, they're simple, and that's great. And hardly ever do things get blown up. But in a laboratory, sometimes things explode. It's not always the right potion the first time you create it. And the same thing goes for marketing. It's not going to be right the first time you do it. That's why we're always testing. Always be testing. That's why we have things like A/B testing. Factories don't have A/B testing. That was already done, and now they've created the thing that works, and now it's just pulling the lever and it's going down the conveyor belt and it's getting packaged and shipped and out into the world. So we have to look at what we do as laboratories, and we have to convince the people around us, especially leadership and our counterparts, to look at us as a laboratory too, and understand that a good portion of what we do, like 20 to 30% of what we do, has to be chalked up to testing, has to be chalked up to exploration. So I think that's super important to carry that with you as a marketing starter. And then there's also this good versus evil or bad marketing concept. And what I mean by that is, this is something that marketers have to constantly combat with, is that we have to do things in our laboratory. We have to do things when we're learning the business that are going to be focused on that human experience and not being selfish, right? We have to meet our buyers where they are. We have to market to them the way they want to be marketed to. We can't be doing things just for the sake of doing them. I couldn't tell you how many times I've had clients say like, hey, can't we just, buy a list and send an email blast and tell everyone in the entire industry about who we are and what we're doing? And I'm like, well, you could. You're going to have terrible bounce rates. People are going to unsubscribe. People are going to hate on your brand. Well, maybe you shouldn't, because this is really a selfish way of marketing. Just buying a list of people who have no idea what your business is or care about what you're doing, like that's not cool. The better way to do it, right, would be to build an awesome content strategy, push content out there, attend conferences, build relationships, and then ultimately nurture those people through the buying cycle of when they then will decide to buy from you. You can't expect a buy on a first click, or you send an email and you can't then think that they're going to just click through your email and then go, oh my gosh, this was amazing. Thank you so much for sending this to me, company I don't know. I'm so engaged with you now and I'm very interested in buying from you. That is not the way people work, especially in B2B, which has been my chief sector within marketing here. all it does is leave a bad taste in people's mouth, and then they don't want to work with you at all. So mitigating the bad, or the good versus the evil or bad marketing is super important. In marketers, you have to be able to say no to things that are being pushed on you, oftentimes from executives. Because I have heard this one great moniker, which is that behind every piece of bad content is a CEO that wanted it, right? I'm sure we've all been pushed by a CEO to say, like, hey, I've got this idea, we should push this thing out, and then you have to do it. And it ends up falling flat on its face because they were being selfish about it, as opposed to really caring about what their audience wants and cares about and wants to hear. So mitigating this is super important as well. Now, I want to tell you guys kind of how a starter would do it. Number one is focusing on the big problem, right? Always focusing on that big customer problem, that one that you see from the top down, the one that's part of the vision, the mission, the why of the company, which hopefully you took the time to understand when you were learning the business. Never losing focus on that is super important. Second thing is creating exclusivity. And I don't mean that by like cutting out certain people, but making people feel special, making customers feel special. Like, just after they write your first check, your relationship's not over. You want to make sure you're lifting up your customers, telling their stories, making them advocates for you. You know, this exclusivity is not all about having a certain email address domain like they did with Facebook when it was first launching, although that did work great. But it's more about, how can I roll out the red carpet for the prospects and the customers around me? And then you want to innovate like crazy over and over again. And you can't innovate in a factory. You can only innovate in a laboratory. So again, back to that note a couple slides ago, innovation is the only way you're ever going to stay alive in this crazy, crazy world that is changing around us all the time. So you gotta have your innovation abilities top notch. And then lastly, of course, is being a master of hype. We are marketers, after all. We are advertising professionals. We are people that are on the march to rah, 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 and shout from the rooftops about our company. So you have to be a master of that hype. And that's where your creativity kind of comes in, and understanding like, hey, how can I hype my business? How can I do it in a human way where it's going to be well received and is going to reflect great on me and work great on my business as well. So being a master of hype, super important. So lastly here is, well, what can we do? Well, number one is you want to own your business. And what I mean by that is whatever little slice of marketing or of the general business that you are responsible for, you need to own it. And owning it means treating it like it's your own company. So remember that entrepreneurship hat that you have on right now? Well, that's where I want you to tighten that cap down and think about whether you're a creative designer, you're a digital marketer, you're a director of marketing, partner, whatever you do. Pretend like your little piece is your own company. So you need to live it, you need to breathe it, you need to nurture it, you need to make sure that you understand it in and out, how it impacts other people around you, how it's perceived in the marketplace, and then ultimately focus on growing it too. So really owning that, making it your own. Then be comfortable with the uncomfortable. So going back to that, embracing change and open to challenges, this goes right in line with that too. You can, if you're comfortable in what you're doing, then you're not growing, plain and simple. You need to be uncomfortable, slightly agitated, not saying you need to like be completely stressed out, worried, frantic all the time, not that. If you're in that type of environment, maybe you should get out. But you need to be slightly uncomfortable to the point of where you feel yourself growing, where you feel yourself innovating, you feel yourself recognizing pain points within what you're doing personally that are going to help you kind of take what you're doing in your career or in your marketing to the next level. So you need to get comfortable with that and understand that you're going to be uncomfortable and it's going to happen at some point. And that is a forcing function for growth within what you do. Then you want to set yourself up for success. And this is super important. A lot of marketers aren't great at this. And this was something I was not great at early in my career. I was out there, following protocols, working on the projects that I was working on, spinning my wheels sometimes, just really heads down. And then ultimately, when the project came to an end, or my role came to an end at a company, I looked back and I was like, oh, I didn't really have any great KPIs from that thing, or I was like not really able to tell a great story. These are all things that I think that marketers should be focusing on, especially in this hyper digital world, is that you have to take a look at what metrics are most important within your specific role. Make sure that you have those down. Make sure that you're reporting on them. Make sure that you can share on them. So if someone says like, hey, how well did you do last quarter? You could say, well, let me tell you, I did X, Y, and Z, and these things had this kind of impact. And the best metric really at the end of the day is going to be revenue. So if you can find some way of attaching yourself to revenue, again, no matter how big or small, whether it's a creative piece or it's a digital advertising campaign, looking at that at a higher level and go, okay, what was the cost of that and how much revenue came in from it? And what was my ROI on anything that I did? If you can say your ROI on that thing, including your salary in it, and if you're a plus on that, you're doing great. The other ways that you can set yourself up for success, obviously, is making yourself really indispensable. You want to make sure that what you're doing is so ingrained in the company too, that they would not be able to afford losing you at the end of the day. So that's where moving outside of your individual bubble, taking on more and exploring new things that are going to help march things so much further forward and so much faster will make you so much more valuable to the company as well. And then you can also remember that fortune favors the bold. And this is a phrase that I live by. Actually, I tell my kid this all the time. If you don't ask for things, if you don't take that next step, if you don't step out and make something happen, then you're never going to have good fortunes. Yeah, you may burn a few times as well, but the best fortune will come to those who actually, again, do something and try. So you have to be bold in order to be a marketing starter and to really level up in your marketing career. So that's my presentation for you guys. A little bit rapid fire to get it down on time here on video. If you want to learn more, if you want to dig in, please pick up a copy of my book, The Marketing Starter. What I talked about here today, really only scratching the surface. I talk about much more of this, including other people's stories of my own from my past of how marketers are using this entrepreneurial mindset to do what they do best. You can go to tionhines.com/book, scan the QR code there, go to themarketingstarter.com, find it on Amazon, whatever. Please take a look and pick up a copy of my book, and also take a look at my podcast. Again, it's on all of your favorite marketing, all your favorite podcast platforms. So thank you so much. Again, would love to connect with you. Please follow me on socials at @tionhines on everything. You can scan that QR code there to connect with me, and you go to tionhines.com. Now, I hope you guys get out there and start doing something and find a way of mastering the start to make your career even better this year. Thanks.